Welcome back to another episode of the Thriving Therapreneur podcast. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to someone who's not only made the powerful transition from therapy to coaching, but she's carved out a unique and impactful niche in athlete mindset coaching. So we're here with Libby today. She helps athletes, teams, coaches, develop mental toughness, enhance emotional intelligence, and perform under pressure. It's really her job to help all of these coaches and athletes, these groups, reach these peak performance moments. Now, before she got into this niche, we're going to get into her journey because she was right where many of you are. She was wanting to step outside the therapy room. She wanted more freedom. She wanted to make a bigger impact and really just build a business that she was in alignment with, something that worked for her. And she has been on this journey for, what did we just say, Libby? 3 years? Almost 3 years ago?
Coming up on 2 years, yep.
Coming up on 2 years. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so time is flying. She joined the Therapist to Coach Accelerator. Today, she's going to share her story, the key lessons she learned along the way, and how she has built this coaching business that aligns perfectly with her passion. So, yeah. Libby, tell us, what did I miss for an introduction? Let's just start at the beginning. Maybe tell us a little bit about your background as a therapist and
Sure.
why you wanted to transition into coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I was a school-based mental health professional. I'd worked in community mental health. I started a small private practice while I was still working in schools. And then when I was pregnant with my son, I was like, I cannot go work 40 hours a week for somebody else. Like, I can't imagine not having time with him and being home. And so in 2022, I made the transition to full private practice. The boom of telehealth and making that super accessible for people was great for me. So I transitioned in 2022 to full-time private practice, telehealth, working 20, 25 hours a week, which was a huge benefit for me with time, with money, working for myself versus working in schools for other people. But then I found you, and I was like, man, I just want more time. It seems kind of crazy to only be working part-time, but I want more time to do what I want to do. And, and I did feel very limited by my license, right? Just, being on insurance panels and all of that stuff. And so when I found you, I was like, this could be really cool. I could see this being really great. I've kind of transitioned into working for myself, which is a huge mindset shift in itself, right? Going from being an employee of somebody else and then owning your own business. And then I feel like you and your program really opened my idea to this idea that money, it really can be really limitless. You can have freedom, you can make more, you can always make more money. You just can. And I think that that's something I learned really early on in your process and program, is just those barriers that I had into the limits I was putting on myself in terms of my business and how I could run. So coaching was a great next step for me. The niche I'm in now is not the niche I started with when I was in the program.
Right.
My first niche was working with female people pleasers and getting in alignment within their relationships. And that was a personal journey I had gone on in my 20s. That felt really relevant and important to me then. But as I got into the coaching work, I just kind of started to realize that it didn't really reflect my life now. I think it's very relevant. I think it's really important. But I wasn't, I look back on it now and I'm just wasn't as gung-ho or as excited about that niche as the one I'm currently in. So I worked that when I was in the Therapist to Coach Accelerator. That's really what I was focused on. That was all my niche and my offers, and everything was in alignment with kind of that. I found like a little success. I made a couple, I think I made my money back. But I just couldn't get it to like take off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was like, no, I'm not going to give up on this coaching thing just because I didn't find my niche right away. And I think a big part of it for me was like, I think I got kind of stuck in the mindset that like, look at where Carly is. Like, Carly is so successful. And there were like people in the program at the same time as me who like had really quick success, right? Like that happens for some people. They just like find the right niche and they click, and then they all of a sudden they've just like taken off. And I felt like I was like, man, I'm just not getting the traction. And I think it was like barriers within myself
Mm-hmm.
that was leading to barriers outside of myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, like energetically, I mean, you said
Yeah.
it best yourself. Like it just wasn't really in alignment with your life. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like you were forcing it, but like
No.
kinda, like
Kinda. It just felt like
wasn't,
I was picking something, and it was like,
it wasn't
okay,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't quote unquote it, right? Like it
Yeah.
didn't like light you up. Like I always say, like you'll know when you're in perfect alignment with your niche, where like ideas are dropping in all the time, or like you wake up excited to like post something on social media, or like you almost just can't shut up about it to the point where you're wondering like, am I annoying people? Like I'm
Yeah.
so
Like
passionate
hyper focused
about
on
it.
it. It just like is like what you eat, sleep, and breathe, kind of like it's just like so
Yeah,
you're in it.
like it
Yeah,
should
no,
feel
100%.
like that.
Yeah, I
And
didn't
when
ever
it's
feel
like
like that.
money
Yeah,
just drops in. I mean,
yeah,
it just happens as long as you're following the strategy and you have a blueprint, right? But
yeah. I think it was good for me. Like when I was in the program, it helped give me like the strategy, right? Like okay, how do I do this process to transition? Like that was so helpful for me because I'm almost one of those people like I need you to give me the blueprint. I need to try it like quote unquote your way just to see, and then figure out what about that works for me and what about that doesn't, right? Like, and then I think a big thing is remembering like that you didn't start your coaching journey where you are now, right? Like I think I had to remind myself of that along the way. Like you evolved, your niche was different. Like I needed that kind of reminder myself when I like kind of started to realize that like I'm not really passionate about this niche. I'm not getting a lot of traction with it. Probably because like I'm not coming off super excited. Like even if I was
right.
trying, like I think you just I had an Instagram. I got like a couple hundred followers, whatever. Not that vanity metrics are like the thing, but like I think that helps a little bit because it makes you feel like you're connecting with an audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so so a year ago, like December of 2024, I was like, okay, I'm gonna scrap this. Like this niche is just not connecting with me. And then I started thinking like, okay, who are really the clients that I love? Who are the people in my life that I feel like I just am attracted to in terms of like it's easy to like help them process and apply some of these like professional skills, and it doesn't feel like work to have those conversations with people. And so I was an athlete growing up. Sports were a huge part of my life. I played like literally anything that my parents let me play. But I was a huge soccer player. I played competitive soccer for like 10 years. And we also, I grew up around sports. My cousins played hockey, so if I wasn't at the field, I was at the rink with them. And my family and we are billet parents family so we host junior hockey players for the school year, basically August to April or May. So I have like 16 to 20-year-old boys that live in my basement, and they become part of the family, and we're at games, and my 2-year-old's obsessed, and now I have to save all this money for him to play hockey because it's just getting worse every month. The obsession
You
grows.
signed yourself up for that.
I know. I don't think I wasn't gonna get away with it. My husband played hockey, so I wasn't gonna miss that boat. But yeah, so I started to just think like, okay, and I would be having these conversations at the dinner table with these boys, right, that live in my house, and just like the things they go through with the mental aspect of the game, right? Like coaching decisions and ice time, and like the league we host is like kind of run almost like a professional. Like when you get to junior hockey, it's more run like a business, like a professional. Like there's cuts and there's trades, and you know there's a lot of things going on and pressure they're put on these athletes. So I was having all these conversations and I was like, oh my God, like this is it. This is what I want to do. Like I want to work with athletes. I've always loved working with kids, teens, young adults, their parents. Like that was always kind of my thing. And from a business perspective, like people will spend money on their kids. Like they'll spend money on their kids before they almost spend money on themselves for like this kind of work, this kind of help. So I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I scrapped that Instagram, started a new Instagram. I was like, I need to start fresh. It just needs to be new. And I spent the first couple months of 2024, I found I created a free group for hockey moms. And I was like, just come here, tell me what things you're noticing about your kids. What do you struggle with as a parent? I really use that, giving free, lives and resources and stuff, and just kind of really listen. I think I took it slower this time. I think that was part of it too, was I just felt more intentional about what I was doing. So spent the first couple months
just the pressure off yourself.
Yeah.
You allowed it to almost be like a fun experiment, if you will, versus I have to get this off the ground and I have to get X amount of clients by this time. And then that's where you maybe kind of force yourself into
I think so.
something that's not in energetic alignment. However, you would have never landed on this niche had you maybe not have tried the other one. I think just too many people give up too soon, but you had the tenacity to keep going.
Yeah, I think I look back at that and I was like, I needed to go through that experience. It was really helpful to go through the program and I just not that I picked a niche out of a hat kind of thing, but I picked something and I just ran with it and I just tried, right? And that didn't really work out, but I gained all these skills in the process, right? Which is the goal of any learning experience, right? It's it might not work out, it might not fail. It's what you take from it.
But the foundational principles are the same. It just goes to show that you can rinse and repeat because something else is going to come up in your life that's your own lived experience that you're probably going to be passionate about and want to coach on, and you have the blueprint to fall back on.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I got over a lot of the it was a lot of weirdly personal work that happened, I think, through the process, which I think I've heard you kind of say the same thing, the different mindset shifts and the barriers you have to mentally break down for you to live the life, to do the job that is in alignment for you.
I'm smiling when you say weirdly because I hear this all the time. I mean, my clients are like, Carly, I thought I was signing up for a business program, and holy moly, this is the deepest personal journey I've ever taken. And these are therapists, right? They often have their own therapists themselves. I mean, we're working on ourselves. You think you have yourself figured out to a certain extent, and it's whoosh. Starting this journey it really is you learn so much about yourself. Your business is a mirror. But it does 100%. Take going through that personal journey to kind of come out of the gates and get to the point where, you've taken off. So you have taken off now. And I'm so curious. I told we were I was don't tell me before we hit record. I need to just get all of this on recording because, we've stayed in touch just briefly and you've sent screenshots here and there and you're holy cow, this is what I'm doing now. And I'm just what? I'm so proud of you. So can you give us like some details? Like, I mean, I see your Instagram is blowing up. You have all different offers now. Your high ticket program, you're killing it. Like, do you mind sharing revenue?
Sure.
Give us the tea.
Yeah. Yeah, so once I kind of like changed niches and then figured out like, okay, am I offering a parent program? Am I doing kids? Like I really listened to my audience, like what they wanted in those, that free group. So then I launched I was like, I'm doing kids. Like I'll get to the parents through the kids, but I'm doing kids. Like they're the ones doing this work. They're the ones playing the sport at this point, like doing the kids. So, I launched a high ticket. I did a beta. I got a couple people in my beta, and that launched at like last April, May, and really kind of worked through the summer. Again, I kind of took it slow. It was like I'm not trying to like force too much. I'm kind of looking at this like organically. It feels like I'm building something really cool here, and I'm just on the ride for the process, right? Like I'm not obviously I'm setting goals and I'm trying to set deadlines and stuff for myself because you have to do that as a business owner. But like for me, it's like, okay, I still have my therapy private practice. I just wasn't quite ready to give that more consistent revenue up. So I started a high ticket. I offer like a full program for kids, anywhere from 6-7 years old all the way through like college age. What I've heard from my audience, again listening to my audience, is a lot of parents will go to their like local sports psych when their kids like 10-12, and the sports psych will be like, no, they're too young, or they're not elite enough, or whatever. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like these skills, emotional regulation is for everybody, and the earlier you learn it, the better, right? Like the less we have to undo as you get into adulthood, and the more self-actualized you become, and all of these things, right? So I still hear that to parents to this day. Like I'll get like 10-year-old clients, they're like, yeah, we tried to talk to the local one, and they like wouldn't take them. And I was like, oh, I had a 6-year-old do one of my mini courses with his parent, and he's like taken off, like,
right.
So I started with the full program. It's a whole 8 modules. Like I do 1-to-1 sessions. That just seems to work the best for my niche right now. But I do 30-minute 1-to-1 sessions. So I can, take that many more clients. And so they have a recorded course and modules and activities, and then the sessions. And then through my work last summer with my beta, I had a lot of people that were like, I've got an 8-year-old. I'm not ready to commit to like $2,000 worth of investment at this point. Like, but this stuff is important. Like, do you do anything else? And I was like, well, I don't, but I will. So right. I just, I'd already used that leverage work. I cherry picked videos, activities, pared it down into a mini course of like foundational skills, and created a mini course. So this is only a couple $100 investment. So you can buy just the course, which is, completely hands off for me, or you can buy the course with 2 coaching sessions. And then it's like a gateway offer, because then they start to work with me, and they either then add more sessions or they upgrade to the full program. So exactly. I get a lot of clients that start there, especially the younger kids, like 15 and younger, will start with the mini, and then they're like, okay, well, how do we do more? And I'm like, easy, right? Like, here are your options.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's been great. I think last year, I through the course of the year, between developing the mini course, I think I did like 15, 20K, just in the development. It was getting in front of an audience. I think a big part of it for me was just like, okay, you're building something for long term. Like that's $15,000 more than I had.
Well, it's like I always like to view it like when you're first building and you're doing your beta round, it's almost like they're paying you to create this asset in your business. Yeah. Like a lot of people do their beta for free. I mean, I don't recommend that for my clients, right? But right. It's to get testimonials, get their feet off the ground, really like go through the learning process. I mean, for therapists, it's not like you guys are new to this work. Like you should absolutely be charging, but
right.
That's amazing, 15, 20K for your founding members to go through this process. So now that it's up and running more like a well-oiled machine, What's your revenue
I'm on
look
pace
like?
to do 12 this month.
Nice. Okay. Amazing.
So December was what?
I said that's amazing.
Yeah.
12K months, like I'll take it.
Yeah.
On top
Yeah,
of your private practice, are you still seeing clients?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had, like, and that was the other thing. I like kind of started to pare that down as like the year went on, and it was kind of nice to be like, oh, like I had slower months with that. Like I enjoyed the summer with my family. Like I was building this, but then I didn't. I was like, well, I'm just gonna hold off. I'm gonna trust the process. I'm not gonna take on a bunch of clients. Like I'm just gonna see. I'm just gonna see how this goes, and it paid off, right? Like have built something, and I got time with my family, and then now I'm looking at, and when you're looking at like, someone's $375, right, to get to, I would say I probably, with my full program, the mini course really took off. Like I got a lot of clients for that, and then now I'm seeing those clients start to like, oh, okay, what else can we do, like upgrade. So yeah, I just feel like I'm building something, and I feel like I'm going slow. Like it feels slower at times, but it also feels like it's fun. I don't know. It's fun to see the difference, right? Like to go from like, okay, in 2024 I made, 15, but in January of 25 I've made like 12. Like that's crazy. Right. That's amazing.
You're collapsing the timelines. It's only going to get easier from here.
Yeah.
I remember being in your shoes when I was just kind of like starting to get it all. Like I was starting to gain traction, and I was like, okay, like I can really see this through now. Like this is, it's happening, it's working. And I just remember like also then thinking, it's kind of like when you start your private practice and you get that taste of freedom, and then you're like, oh, well, what else is there for me, right? Yeah. So when your coaching business starts to take off and you are making like 10 to 12K months like you are now, and it's like, oh, well, this is cool, but like, what else is for me? Like, can I double it? Can I triple it? Like, this is the cool thing about the coaching space and the online industry, the e-learning industry in general, is there is infinite opportunities. And we started off this episode by you just saying like the money mindset shifts that you learned like way back when at the beginning of the Therapist to Coach Accelerator, where it's like I learned like there's just more money available. Like there's so many different things
make more money.
You can
like,
do. You can create more digital products. Like you can start doing like retreats. You can write a book. Like you can have your own podcast show. Like there's so many things that you can do, and it's just so exciting.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And it's just like I was looking at my Instagram the other day, and I literally started in April 2024. I had like 70 followers. Like it was like my friends and family were like my people. And then I kind of got over, like I remember when I was in the Therapist to Coach Accelerator, I went to one of the visibility workshops. And I was like, I don't think I have problems with visibility. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I do. I really did. Like, I was like, okay, I don't want to be too loud or too controversial about, like, because you get into sports and you get, like, that old school mentality. It's like, oh, no, you just grin and bear it and bootstrap it, and you just kind of, like, grit. And I'm like, what does that mean, dude? Like, that, okay. And I was, like, afraid to almost put that out there. So it's like, sports culture, hockey culture in particular is very kind of like driven by that old school mentality. And then in April, I was like, what are you doing? Like, stop being afraid. Just put yourself on camera. Create a reel. Just say something controversial, right? Like, get people thinking. And I put out a reel that was like me talking about like why people will plateau in their sport. It's because they avoid being uncomfortable with their emotions and working on the mental game. And that video all of a sudden got like 100,000 views, which was crazy to me when, you're used to a couple hundred or whatever.
Right.
And it just kept taking off. And I remember it was like my kid turned 2 and it was at his birthday party. And I kept getting these Instagram notifications of like, you're up to 1,000 likes, 30,000 views, like all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening right now? Like, this is crazy. And then I just was like, okay, I'm going to make a commitment to myself to like, I'm going to post, I'm going to follow, go back to following the framework. I'm going to jump into this social media thing because that's where all these kids are, right? Like all these athletes, all these players, that's where they're at. They're on Instagram. I didn't really do the TikTok thing. But I was like, they're on Instagram and their parents are on Instagram. So I just started being really consistent about posting. And that's how I got, like, I did all organic stuff until like November. And then I started running ads, and that has been really successful for me. I think that contributes.
I was going to ask you about that, if you're doing the paid advertising too. But
I am now. Yeah.
Yeah. It just goes to show that you can grow organically, and growing organically first, which is what I teach
organically,
inside the
I grew
Therapist
from
to Coach
70,
Accelerator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I teach
70
both,
followers
but
to 15 in December. 15,000 followers in a year.
You can absolutely have a thriving, successful business on organic. But the thing is when it comes to marketing, you're always going to spend time or you're going to spend money. So I guarantee, like, if I was in your head, like how you probably made the decision to jump ship to do paid advertising, and it's not that you abandon organic marketing. You still do organic marketing, but you don't want to rely on it as heavily, and you want more of a machine, and you want to do less, outreach, and you want to do, you just want an
them
inbound
to find me.
Lead generation system. Yes, where they come to you.
Yeah.
Inbound versus outbound, right?
Yeah. And they're already primed for that conversation, right? Like they come into my DM and it's like, okay, like we have a short little conversation, like what's going on. I give a little like insight into what I do, not the full sales thing, but like this is kind of, that I work on that with athletes, whatever. And then I invite them to a call, and it's and paid advertising. You're right. Like I still post. Like I still like want to connect with my audience in that way, and I still post organically, and I still do get some messages from that. But it's like crazy once you turn on the paid ads, like how almost
once you have proven messaging, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine back in the day if you would have turned on paid advertising just because you were sick and tired of organic marketing with your old niche that wasn't in alignment. I guarantee you wouldn't have gotten the same results.
No, you would have just spent money on nothing.
Right. So you have to have like that proof of concept in organic marketing that is resonating with your clients first, and then it's like, okay, this makes sense. Like, let's put some dollars behind it now so that you can make sure that you get your return on investment. That's the whole point of paid advertising in the first place. Yeah.
So that's been a game changer.
Another thing I want to point out is, because you're talking about mini course and how that took off, and just like a learning lesson for everybody who's listening right now, because a lot of people want to start with a mini course and they think it's easier, right? But you start it with high ticket, which was wise, and then you created a lower ticket offer for the people who weren't quite ready for the high ticket offer. And then you warmed them up. It was like a taster. It was like a teaser. And then they could ascend into the higher ticket offer. But if you start with the low ticket offer, one, you're not going to make as much money. Like, how many mini courses do you have to sell to hit your revenue goal? And then you have nothing for them to ascend into.
Yeah.
So
it was already leverage work, right? It was like I already did all this work creating the high ticket, which I had interest in and I was getting clients for. Because I have some consult calls and I tell them they're like, here's kind of the options, and there's still people that are like, no, hit me with the high ticket. Like, I'm ready to jump. But yeah, the mini just kind of came about from the audience. And then also, like, I know you have different you have like your social media one that you offer and all of like those things. And so I was like, I'm going to branch out and branch down with material I already have made. Like, this is easy now. But yeah, I think you're right. I think had I started with the mini course, it is a harder hill to climb to go high ticket.
And now that you have those two main offers pretty much up and running like a well-oiled machine, next steps for you is definitely creating more digital products.
Yep.
Creating tripwire funnels and upsells and self-liquidating offers. I mean, we talk about like the potential of what else you can do. There's so much more you can do to even like double.
Yeah, on my docket for this
24K months easy instead of 12. Like,
yeah, on my docket for this quarter is a digital product for coaches, because what I run into a lot with coaches and workshops is, parents, half the team is like invested and think this is valuable, and then the other half doesn't. And so it's like, to get a full team to invest in a workshop is a harder sell. And so I talked to a bunch of coaches, and they're like, no, I still want to do this stuff. And I was like, well, what if I created a course for you? Like, you take the course, you take the activities, you implement it with the team, right? Like, and they're like, yes. When is it ready? I've had like 6 people message me like, when is that ready? And I was like, well, March, you have to give me a minute. Like, I need to get a second to create it. But they're like chomping at the bit for this. So it's just like all these things that, like, once you have the high ticket and you connect with that audience and you're feeling like that that alignment, like, things just start to pop up for you. Like, opportunities pop up and
it's
ideas pop up.
And then the money pops up to follow.
And then the money. Yeah.
Money is a magnifier, right? It comes after. All of those pieces have to be in place first, and most importantly, it is that alignment. So I want you to tell everyone where they can find you and tell us a little bit more about some resources. But I also really want to ask you, because this is your journey, right? And you've been at this for a few years, and you understand deeply the world of therapy, not only private practice, but like working for someone else, then moving to private practice, then moving to coaching, but not taking off right away, but then having the tenacity to keep going. What advice would you give to anybody who wants to take the leap into coaching, or they're already doing it and maybe they're in that stuck place that you were in where they're contemplating? Well, I don't think you actually ever contemplated giving up. That was not.
No, I didn't. I just contemplated giving up that niche, but I was like, I'm not giving up this coaching thing. But like, I think my biggest piece of advice is like, ask yourself what kind of life you want to live. And I know you have like the in the program that like calculator expense, like what did you want to have money for, and so like that your fee schedule or whatever. And I think a big part for me is like every step of the way it was like, what do I want my life to look like, right? So when I was pregnant, it was like, I can't imagine getting up, having 45 minutes in the morning to rush and get myself and my kid ready, and then I don't see them, and then picking them up and having an hour or two after work. Like, it was all about these like life transitions for me around like what did I want my life to look like, and realizing that I didn't have to be stuck in any box of that, right? Like, I think there's a big mentality shift from like the biggest mentality shift I had was going from working for somebody else to working for myself. That's a big one, because it's almost like I think a lot of people get trapped in that idea of security. Like, it's a steady paycheck and you get benefits, but like, what are you giving up? Like, that cost benefit is big.
The sacrifice you're making.
Yeah. And then I think that was the biggest mindset shift for me. But then I think my biggest piece of advice is like, what do you want it to look like? It can literally look like anything. Like, what do you want to do with your time? What do you want to do with your money, right? Like, what kind of money do you need to make to live the life you want? Like, that is my biggest piece of advice, is that
it's like reverse engineering, like design the life first. Yes. And then, all right, how can my business fit into this lifestyle?
Yeah.
And also doing the math too with the numbers. It's like, all right, well, you know, what type of money do I need to live this lifestyle? And then how am I going to reverse engineer that to make it happen?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I think different life transitions almost push me towards that, right? Like having a kid, and then once it was like, okay, I had a kid, and now I have this more money than I had when I was working for somebody else, and I have more freedom. I'm trying to work the least amount and make the most amount and still impact and connect with clients, but have time to do the things I want to do with my family. Like, I don't want to ever say, I don't want to have to say no to like, oh, I can't go to this family, do this family activity or this trip, or, you know, I have a young kid. He's 2, like he's going to start preschool next year. And then, you know, it just gets more crazy from there. But I want to go on the field trips. I want to be able to have the flexibility. I knew that was something I wanted. The flexibility made the most sense for me. And so I think as life transitions come up for people, I think those are the moments where you either get to stay in your comfort zone or you push past that.
And you're doing it now. You have the freedom.
I'm doing it now.
You're living the life. The vision board is here.
I think that's huge too. Like, you have to look at it every day, and you have to say to yourself, like, okay, am I doing the most important thing right now to get me where I want to go, right? Like, because it is overwhelming to own your own business, especially in the beginning when you're the marketer and the closer and the provider and all these things, right? Like, you're all of the people for this business. And I think it can get overwhelming, but it's like, okay, well, why am I doing this? What's the point? What's my why, right? And then part of it has to just be like not afraid to fail. That's another thing. That's something I work with my clients on all the time, like fear of failure, fear of mistakes. Like, I used to be so trapped in that when I was an athlete through my 20s, all of that. Like, what if it fails? Okay. What if it fails?
So what?
Who cares?
Yeah.
What are you going to learn from it? And then what are you going to do? The only way you really truly fail is if you quit.
Yep.
And when you start to wrap your head around that idea, like, you're probably going to fail more than you succeed. Like, that's how you learn. You might launch a product and it kind of flops. Okay, whatever. Yeah. Figure out something else.
I always tell my clients, I dare you. I dare you to fail. Like, I want everybody to just go ahead and fail as many times as possible this week, and then come back and tell me about all of your failures. And it's just like this mindset shift where you welcome failure, and you're like, okay, like, you dared me to fail. Like, all right, here I go, you know?
Yeah.
And then you surprise yourself and you see what happens.
Yeah. I think that's the big part, is just the comfort zone, like leaving that behind.
Well, this has been amazing.
I go there.
I love catching up with you and just hearing. I was so genuinely curious, and I know we've been trying to record this actually for a while, so
yeah, I know.
I'm glad I got you on.
Yes.
And tell everybody, where can they find you if they're interested in athlete coaching, or maybe they just want to lurk your stuff and be like, okay, well, what is she doing? And how is this so successful? Go find your Instagram.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. It's Libby Triolo Coaching. My website is libbytriolocoaching.com. And, you know, I have a freebie on there for like a mindset checklist for athletes. Like, basically all the skills you need to know to be acing the mental game, basically. So that you can get on there on my website. You can sign up for my newsletter as well.
Awesome. And I'll include that in the show notes for everybody.
Sweet.
But thank you so much, Libby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for you. Cheers to your continued success. I can't wait to see where you go and get all of the juicy updates as you continue to scale your business while simultaneously impacting lives and living your freedom lifestyle with your family and your kid. I just love it for you. So I am so proud of you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having the Therapist Coach Accelerator.
Of course.
Needed it. Thanks.